And welcome back. Before the break now, we were talking about Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa as he's called for greater collaboration between security agencies and stakeholders to boost crude oil production. And now joining us to have this conversation, we have with us Mr. Temitope Kolade, who's an energy and business analyst. Mr. Kolade, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me. Good evening.
Grand. Good evening to you too. Now, what do you make of Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa's call for greater collaboration between security agencies and stakeholders to boost crude oil production?
Thank you very much for that question. Two things. One is communication. I mean, communication is very key, and we must applaud him for at least coming out strong to communicate what is expected and how he believes they'll be able to do things differently. However, it doesn't stop at communication. We must then begin to walk the talk. It's important at every point when you want to resolve issues like this that you will then say, where are the boots on the ground? But I guess, again, that because security is now beyond just combative sort of models of dealing with security issues, there is that necessity to have conversations. And what I would expect from here is that conversations need to be had with local communities and people who are involved, because in the long run, the sort of battle we're fighting with respect to oil theft and all other issues around security within the Niger Delta stems from issues that are more or less within. I mean, people are involved. Sometimes the people who are supposed to ensure the security are the ones who are actually making the process not work. So there is the need for more practice than just communicate, but the communication is something that we should also applaud.
There's the implicative nature of the situation here, because it'll make you ask the question how the current security measures have been combating oil theft and other security challenges in the Niger Delta. How do you think this is? What are the specific challenges that the security agencies are facing in this regard?
Well, we've had in the recent past where you engage government security agents, and at the same time, there is also government engaging third parties who are not necessarily with government, and then you then see that there is a conflict between the two different forces trying to combat the same problem, and it gives you an idea of the fact that indeed the interests at hand gives us a way, right? And so in conflict resolution, there are three things that will want to pay very close attention to: communication, but beyond communication, you must understand what the interests are. And then participation. Who are the people that are involved in the sort of who perpetrate the insecurity situation that continues to persist? And so that again gives us concerns as to whether the government really has the willpower to solve the problems for as long as it has continued to stay. Right, so that's one reason why we will think that things have not necessarily worked the way it should have worked in the past. And so until we resolve those issues of interest, who are the people interested in taking the crude resources, maybe legally or illegally, and how do they ensure that they provide the right sort of support to those who are meant to secure these things, that's where we would ensure success. Otherwise, we'll just continue to have conflicts because interests will not align. Until you get everyone to align to say, hey, our interest is to boost oil production, whether it's the people in the community or the people that you have even asked to be the security agents, or maybe even the companies that produce and the staff that work with it. So it's a multi-pronged approach. It's a multi-stakeholder approach that needs to be taken to resolve this.
So how can the military and other stakeholders enhance community engagement and build trust with local communities in the Niger Delta?
Well, a couple of things to do. Number one, you will think of, again, participation. It's stakeholders engagement. Stakeholders need to have conversations. Nothing gets stolen without someone being able to identify how it's been stolen. There is technology to be used, for instance, to track things even when humans are not there to see what exactly is happening. But most importantly, without being overly technical about this, I think one key thing is the willpower of the people who want to protect these resources. They must have that strong willpower. A tone from the top will get up to solve a lot of problems rather than just continue to say something that we want to do it and then things don't get done. We've had it in the past when you just see that certain things get done differently at some point and you find solutions. In the recent past, in December, for instance, oil production jumped to about 1.48 million barrels per day just because the Niger pipeline was protected more. And so it's really about what do we want to achieve and do we get the right persons to stay on top of the issues without being compromised.
Hang on a second, if you can say that again. So there was increase in production because there was more security.
Yeah, more security on the Niger pipeline, particularly in December. And I'm saying that if you're going to sustain that, it's then necessary for us to ensure that the people who are responsible for keeping those facilities in place and in good shape continue to do their work without getting compromised.
Okay. Well, is the conspiracy there regarding the people who are supposed to guard these facilities and the interests that lie in these people or that these people have, or the people who've put them in these positions? But let's continue with another question here. While increasing oil production is priority, what steps are being taken to diversify the Nigerian economy and reduce its dependence on oil?
Well, if I was going to respond to your first comment, I would say it's as good as mine, right?
Yeah.
But how do we ensure that we then diversify? Because again, if you look at the budget, and I hear it's been again reviewed upwards to 54.2 trillion naira for 2025. About 60% of that is supposed to come from oil production, right? So what does that mean for us? We need to diversify away, but we'll continue to say this for as long as I know as well. What we need to do differently, I would say human capital development is very critical. For the most part, you will think that, yes, Nigerians are knowledgeable, but there is a lot more to do, and there is a lot more skills that we can export out of Nigeria to earn us more foreign exchange. And that would help us to fix some of the issues that we have with our economy, right? Because the more we have remittances from offshore, the better it is for us. One of the issues that we've had continually is that trade imbalance that we have in Nigeria. We are import dependent, and that has skewed things very badly for us for a long time. The sanctity of contract is yet another thing. So no matter what we want to do within the country, we are inviting investors to come and do things. Foreign direct investment in 2024 wasn't great. If you're going to turn the tide around, then we've got to provide the sort of good business environment for investors to come into the country, and there must be good regulation that you can trust that, oh, when the government says it's going to do this, they will continue to do that. Infrastructure is also very key. How do we leapfrog? We've got to start from renewable energy, for instance, and say, what do we do differently? And I hear there are conversations between the President of the Republic and the Minister of Finance talking to the African Development Bank as well as the World Bank, dealing with how, in respect to certain conversations on improving our renewable energy status and putting some funds into it. And so if we could solve that problem, then we are able to resolve the power issue to a very large extent. And that would be a good basis for industry to flourish. So there is a lot of things for the country to do, for the government to do, but we must prioritize and start taking it one step after the other.
Well, Temitope, 10 minutes is not enough to have this conversation. I'll be inviting you over on another show so we can have a bigger and much more robust conversation on the issues here. But thank you very much this evening.
Thanks for having me.